Okay. So we're having Slobodan as a serverless hero, exactly the same as last episode from last week. So apologies for the little technical difficulties, but here we are, and we are going to complete in the next hour.
Hello, everyone. And yeah, I guess we can start again.
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode number 9 is about end-to-end test. And last Wednesday, we touched on integration test, and you should be able to see a work in progress PR where you can see exactly what are the changes we've been making, and also not only the outline of what we've gone through, but also links that we touched on when we are sharing things with you or going through multiple pages. That should help you if you are trying to follow this and trying to do everything on your own. So if you click on the files changed for the second, please, Slobodan, that is the place you should be able to see all the files that we've been changing, and in particular, everything around Docker Compose or Cypress folder or end-to-end test. That's exactly what we're being focusing right now. I think the best place to start for today is Slobodan, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, is end-to-end can be interpreted differently depending on who you ask. And I think one of the nice bits about this is this link in there on the practical task pyramid is in a small picture, it covers pretty much
Yeah,
what we normally want to talk about.
yeah. We This is the picture that Aitor is mentioning, and this whole article is really nice, and it explains different types of testing and things like that. But we'll focus just on tests.
Cool. So just before we start, is anyone hearing echo? Just want to check if it's just C Sharp Warrior or if it's anybody else. Alex and Simon, are you also hearing some bad echoes? Because I can't hear on my end. Okay, cool. All right, so I will continue, but if it's still happening, then we can go back and try to fix it. All right, cool. Thank you. So when you talk about end-to-end testing, I initially thought it was, and then Slobodan corrected me last week. I initially thought it was only when you have UI tests, or basically open up a browser, Chrome, Firefox, whatever, and you had your testing suite going to the website, selecting DOM elements through Selenium, Nightwatch, you name it. But it sounds like it's actually a lot more than this, right, Slobodan? We discussed about doing end-to-end tests, both using just Jest and Amplify, and
Yeah,
also using UI.
yeah. It really depends what's our application, and for example, if you're checking just backend, basically, if you just fire our REST API calls or GraphQL calls, that's basically an end-to-end test for our services and our backend application. If you want to test both UI and backend application, then we probably need something like Selenium or Cypress that we'll use today and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So I think you can definitely go to this website and learn more about end-to-end tests because we only have an hour, actually 15 minutes to be more exact now. We want to just start going straight to what we're trying to do. So let's open up the Visual Studio Code or the code we have, and let's just give a quick overview on the project structure and everything we've just added.
So yeah, inside source, beside backend and front end, which is basically front end and backend application, we now have end-to-end tests, and that's something that we'll focus on today. And yeah, inside end-to-end tests, we have a few different things. We basically have a setup for Cypress. You want to go through that setup? We should probably start with package.json, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the test UI, we are not using Docker. We're just basically using Cypress, the tool that we're going to be showing you in a minute. And the difference between test UI and test UI dev is imagine you are trying to learn how to write a semantic HTML or a proper way to write front ends, or but you don't actually want to keep making changes, push, waiting for the CI to kick, and then run Cypress. So you can overwrite what we call the base URL, and Cypress we're going to be running locally, and but at the same time testing still the real DynamoDB table, the real business transactions using the real environment.
Yeah, also we can use this rewrite for base URL for different things. For example, maybe someone from your team has a copy of the project on their own stack or something like that. They can simply run end-to-end tests on their stack, and then you can run final tests on some stack that you're using together, like test stack or whatever.
Exactly. One of the challenges with Cypress is super easy to install. All you need to do there is just do an npm install, and you can see at the bottom there's a dev dependency. But one of the challenges I had being used to Selenium, where you had to do a lot of setup and a lot of go back and forth, Cypress installing itself was really easy. But at the same time, it creates a lot of folders, which I didn't really have a clue what they were for. So we did all of it for you already, and it's structured in a way that this can grow quite nicely. And it is exactly what that UI folder is for.
This one, and I'll open it. Inside, we'll see Cypress folder and the Cypress JSON folder. I guess we can start with Cypress JSON because it's a small config file. You can see a base URL here. This is the application that we'll test today. And of course, you can use that rewrite to point this to any other URL.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the exactly environment variable you could change on the UI dev, which you would change the base URL. One tip that I only learned after trying a few things is if you don't set the base URL, Cypress will open up the browser and we will take at least one or sometimes 2 or 3 seconds just to open up in the page you want, because it tries to open up in localhost first and then it goes to the website you want to visit. By setting base URL, you get at least 2 seconds there in optimization, which is pretty good.
Yep. Also, the other things such as Chrome Web Security and wait for animations can help with different things. Chrome Web Security is really useful whenever you have login to, for example, if you want to do some social login. I had some issues with that in the past, but I think it works now. So basically, it allows you to visit some other websites and things like that from Chrome. By default, there are some security things that Chrome will not allow you to do.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of the reasons I use that is because we're using the HTTPS. I wanted to also make sure that whatever you're testing, the certificate and everything else can be useful. But one of the pieces that's also important that it took me a while to discover, there's also a file there called tsconfig.json. If you open up that one, when you're trying to use that in JavaScript, or especially in Visual Studio Code, there's going to be a lot of commands and methods you don't know. Going back and forth to the documentation is not going to be helpful. So if you have that file, that once you install Cypress, it automatically installs types. You don't have to use TypeScript if you don't want it to, but just by having this file, once we go to the spec, you will see that we can automatically get an autocomplete for everything that Cypress gives to us.
Yeah, and this tsconfig is in the same level as package.json, so it's not inside UI folder, it's outside of it. And it's a pretty standard configuration for TypeScript. It just has like a few things for Cypress, such as type Cypress.
Exactly. So all right. So the last piece of the configuration developer setup that again you don't need to worry about it. We've done everything to you already. Is the Docker Compose file, because we're gonna do in a CI manner. One of the easiest way to do this is to use Cypress Docker image, and you can even verify if that's gonna work in CI. If you can use the same image as they bundle everything that you need to have. And we run the same command, Cypress run that project in there. So that allows us to use pretty much everything we want.
Yeah, and we can technically run this from code build and basically many other CI tools. And as far as I know, Cypress has some plan where you can pay something and then run, or even they have a free plan or something like that, where you can run everything on their CI without like installing and using Docker and things like that, but we'll not cover that today.
Cool. All right. So let's get to the meat of it, or the veggie for vegetarian. So let's open up the first test. And
so, yeah. Inside Cypress, we have different folders. Most of these folders are created by Cypress, but our tests are inside integration here. Right? Do we want to start with the first test?
Yeah, let's just open up the first one, which is basically going to the website, to the airline.
So let's try to explain quickly the syntax and everything. So it's similar to just, instead of describe, we have this context thing. And then inside we have it, which is basically the same as just, Jasmine, and a few others. Actually, no, just is test, but it's similar to Jasmine. And then basically we have this. This is just visiting our base URL, right? And then after that, we're just checking if that base URL includes this thing, which is basically redirect to home and auth page. We're redirected to auth page. And then in the end, we can check this authenticator form, this simple CSS class, and check both inputs for first and last name and see if they have placeholders. It's a simple test.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are, so let's try running that. Let's try run that instead of running with Docker. Let's just run that so people can see the visual thing. But one of the reasons we are using that dot authentication form is if you ever used Amplify components, especially the authentication one, it works really amazingly if you're using React. If you are using Vue, however, you need to inject a class because you don't have that much flexibility compared to React. By doing this, we get explicitly what is the authentication form that Amplify has injected to us. And then from there, we are particularly just looking for, if there's an input in there, which is only going to be 2, we check for the placeholders.
Okay, yeah. So let's try to run our tests. So first, I just want to show that I don't have Cypress right now on my computer, and you don't need to have it because we have like npm commands ready for you. And this is a handy small npm command that will just list all npm scripts. And for example, I can run this test UI by just clicking on it. It's basically npm run test UI. It will use locally installed Cypress. And now we'll see UI for Cypress. And then we see our 2 tests. This one is basically the test that we saw. Do we want to run just this one or both of them?
Let's just run one and then we walk through it.
Yep.
Especially because I want to show the debugging capabilities because it's really awesome.
Yep. So basically we have our test and it passed. And then I guess we can go through each step of it. So first we just visited the website, right? Then it focused on, it redirect us to auth redirect to home and checked if this includes, if our URL includes this auth redirect home. Then after that, it focused on the form. You can see that it focused on the form. And then it found the first input. And inside that input, it checked the placeholder, then the second input, and then it found the placeholder in that input too.
Exactly. One of the nice pieces about the Cypress, which I must say I was very impressed on how easy it was to, once I got hold of installation and everything, if you go back to the spec before we run the more complete test, you're going to notice that we don't even have a assertion in there. And we don't even have, if we ever use Selenium or Nightwatch actually Nightwatch is better, but if you ever use Nightmare.js, in the past for a few years, if you're that old, you would remember that you had to do a wait stage and also do a bunch of checks and then use your assertions. Cypress is actually smart enough to visit the website, know we may have some animations or some network request. It would wait for those, and then if he actually is able to select those selectors in the HTML and it's able to find those pieces, it would automatically confirm the test works.
Yeah, it's built basically for JavaScript applications, so it's handling all these things really nicely.
Yeah, do you want to run the second test and then we can do a sort of a debugging to show to people something more complex?
Yeah, but before that, we can just show one thing. So sometimes you don't know how to find some form and things like that inside inside your UI. Maybe you need to look for classes and things like that. Later, we'll discuss how to design your application to be able to find all those things easier and test all those things easier. But Cypress has this thing, which basically allows you to focus anything. For example, let's focus the sign in button, and then you can simply copy this to clipboard. And if you go back to I don't know, to home, you'll see that you have the full command, cy get button with the class and everything. So it's really awesome for these things. Okay, let's run everything now. So I'll go back here and just stop everything and run both specs. We have two specs right now. First one, as you saw it, is just checking the form. Second one is checking login. And yeah, it logged in successfully, and you can see the next page here.
Yeah, if you open up that search for flights, there's a lot going on in there. So if as you hover the mouse through the visit and everything else, Cypress actually takes a snapshot of each of those, or a screenshot even, of each of those particular steps, and it can walk us through exactly how it was before, after, and even better than that. If you follow the series before, there's going to be a part where as soon as we search for a particular flight, it has to make a GraphQL call to AppSync in order to retrieve those flights. As you go through this, Cypress can also intercept those calls, stub, and do anything you like. But we're not doing this. What we're doing instead, we're essentially going through exactly like any customer would do. If you click on that post 200,
if I click it here, it will say printed out to console. So I'll fire up my console. And here it is. Here's the request with all the important things such as duration, request, response, and things like that.
Yeah, especially when one of the pieces after seeing this, I was very impressed with Cypress at first, with everything, how easy it is to do. But as soon as I start adding more and more tasks, one thing I realized was, I think the sweet spot, and I could be wrong if there's anyone from Cypress here, one of the sweet spots I found now for Cypress, it's not pretty much doing the test against a production website, but actually acting as a companion as you're developing things and finding things over. You're gonna see that I made a pretty beginner mistake as I was building the front end. As soon as we open up the spec, I'm gonna be able to point that out to you. But the nice part of all this is you can see the network request. If you actually click on the response object, you'll see exactly what AppSync would retrieve to you. It's going to be on the body, data, the name of the query, and all the flights that was returned. In this case, we only have one flight, but we know we had more flights because we have a next token and things like this. But we're limiting to that flight only.
Also, you can see the same thing for requests, so you can easily check headers that are sent and body and things like that, and easily debug all these things.
Yeah, one thing I learned about a few minutes ago before the stream is if you click on a request, there's something called body, obviously, because it's a post, right? So in the body of the request object, there's exactly the query that you normally send to GraphQL. So if you don't want to, if there are parts of your application that you don't want to go, because it's a very expensive operation to open every single page and go through this, you can actually save that as a string in your spec, and you can use a Cypress request, which is a method that you can use. Instead of using the UI, it just makes a request on behalf of it, but it doesn't use the UI to make that operation. And then you can use the return to continue other operations in the browser. And so that allows you to manipulate pretty much everything you need in the browser as well, from local storage to cookies or anything you like.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's optimized for new technologies such as GraphQL and many other things. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, one of the rookie mistakes I've made, and I'm happy to point that out. On the left-hand side, after the post, you see that there's something called get flight __ departure. So that's something called BEM, if you haven't seen it before. So BEM is a way to declare when you're defining your CSS classes and everything in a very structured way. So you would have your flight we know is a particular to the flight, and then we would have a modifier or something. So one of the things that happens there is for that particular piece of the UI, if you go to flight departure, flight arrival, and flight card, they're very well defined. But as soon as you start moving to other parts like payments or flight card itself, you will see that there's a lot of stuff missing. I'm not even checking about the ticket pricing. I'm not checking about some flight details that we could have checked against. The reason for this is that the front end is missing some semantic details.
Yeah, so basically, if you want to check something, it can be really hard here to find that piece. So I guess we can go here and try to, to select this. You can see that it's really hard to find like this class and things like that.
Exactly. So there's a link on the pull request that basically says best practices, and one thing I'm actually again. I promise you, it's not a marketing thing. I'm really impressed with how good the documentation is for Cypress. If you click on that link, you will find that there's not only best practices in general about end-to-end tests and UI tests, but even how you can do some proper selecting of your elements in the DOM. It suggests the use of data attributes. So if you're familiar with HTML, you can use that to specifically target something. It's not going to change anything into the front end per se. But at the same time, I like using the classes or the band. That's why the flight __ things like this. So I'm going to be doing a mix after this episode, a mix of data and classes.
For example, they showed here, you can add data attributes just for your end-to-end tests. For example, data CY equals submit. So even if you change a class or maybe you have, with React, we often had like automatically generated class names and things like that. You don't care about that because you still have this data attribute that you can just use to run your tests.
Exactly. If you open up Cypress once again and you open up developer tools, do a selector somewhere, especially when it's 100 euros, just so we can see.
So just a second, I'll try to select it. And yeah, maybe I can.
So you can actually use the normal Chrome developer tools. There's a.
Yeah, but clicking here will not just work.
So unselect the Cypress developer thing, the selector playground.
Okay.
So on the right hand side, there's the Chrome developer tools where you have the select button. So use that one instead. So if you try to zoom in your screen a little bit, because at least to me it's a little bit small.
Of course.
Yep. So if you can resize a bit, I just want to point out the challenge of when you're using these modern front-end developer front-end frameworks in general, like Vue.js, or in this case we're using Quasar, amazing one. But as soon as you start adding components to your front end, you're going to start seeing those data /-v-a random something. And as you build those, or as you try to run, your test is going to fail. That's why one of the good practices is using a class of like using the band. That's why you see that flight __ price, or also using something like a specifically targeted for end-to-end test, data -side something else. Which again, we don't need it to put in there, but that's something we're gonna be adding offline.
Of course, it wouldn't work if you just put it in here because when we run next time, that will not be at the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing that was actually Slobodan and I were discussing is if you go back to the Visual Studio Code and you open up that task itself, you're gonna find something that you don't want to see in multiple tasks, which is the visit, authenticate, and going back and forth. So replicating that into multiple tasks, it may not be the best option.
Yeah, fortunately, we can automate these things. If you, for example, want to run tests in parallel, which we'll discuss later, we can basically automate some things and log in every test and then test things like that. What's commented in here is cy login command, which is basically a custom command. And you can create custom commands with Cypress by doing that in this support folder. And then you'll see here commands.js. If you go to command.js, there are some documentation here. There's really nice document explaining commands here. It's linked. And you can also see this custom command called login that we built. And then you can see basically the similar code here. So now instead of doing this thing, we can simply remove, should I just comment this out and test this? We can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to, so accept the flight. So did you do the line? So we're gonna need the flight object.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought this was like login.
That's okay. It could actually make it fail. If it fails, we learn.
No, it's fine. So yeah, maybe we should make it fail, but this time let's focus on making it run first. So I'll go back to Cypress and try to run everything. I'll just stop everything and run my tests again. I saved everything, at least I hope I did. And yeah, it works. That's it.
Yeah, which is one of the, so that also brings another question. We are actually hard coding the credentials for that. If you go back to the support command, actually there's a to-do there, which basically says fetch it from secrets manager or system manager parameter store. So those credentials are static, but the nice piece of it is this is just regular JavaScript. So we can do anything we like here and inject those credentials, or basically create an additional parameter to options and say log in with the admin as an admin now to test a admin dashboard, or log in as a generic user with no permissions whatsoever, but searching and booking a flight. All that sort of thing can be helpful when you're trying to grow your suite of tasks, and at the same time, it makes it easier to kind of organize large state of tasks as well.
Yeah, of course. Just the thing is, if you put everything to secrets manager or SSM params and things like that, you just need to make sure that you have access rights and things like that, which is not the hard thing to do, but you just need to think about that too. There are many different ways to store credentials, and definitely storing them in params or something like that would be probably the best way.
Exactly. So if we go back to the search flight a little bit, the search flight spec.
Search flight spec, here I am.
Yeah, one of the interesting things as well that I managed to fail, it took me about a minute or so, and actually more than a minute until I realized how to fix it, is on line 23, there's a CY actually, that visit. You notice that there's a slash, hashtag, slash, and then the view, the route that I have to take. When you're using single page applications, when you're testing those, there's something called history mode, which basically removes that hashtag, or maybe it's the opposite. So anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. And
sorry for jumping in. So basically, by default, single page applications don't have like full URLs. Instead, they store the URLs behind this hashtag. But you can now use built-in JavaScript history to just remove that and push directly these URLs to Chrome and other browsers and simulate page reload and things like that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, that makes completely sense. So when you set your base URL, you gotta make sure you have the slash, hashtag, and then the route that you want. One of the reasons we do this, and I actually have to thank Simon, who's also on the stream, is if you go to the real application, just go to the airline .serverless.dev on the website. That's one of those things that you only realize after you coded something. So if you go to airline.serverless.dev, and if you search for the London Gatwick to Madrid, you're gonna find that.
Just a second.
Oh, you need
I
to
can
log in.
use the same. Yeah, of course, I can use the same login as we have here.
Yep.
Which is a good thing when we have some things like hard coded. So let's search for what? London?
Search for London Gatwick, so the second result, and search for Madrid. There's always going to be a flight every Wednesday from London Gatwick to Madrid if you're doing this for the first time. So search the flight. Let's say before you select the flight, let's say that something happened on your browser and you accidentally refresh the page. Do a refresh the page. Perfect. So one of the reasons we do this on that particular URL and the way it is constructed is you see the date and departure and arrival. That is exactly the same thing. We're going to be using that for the query itself. We can detect in Vue.js or any other framework we could be using to see if someone was refreshing the page and came directly that page without going to the search itself. And that's exactly the same for if you do a refresh the page there as well.
Oh, sorry. Yes, for flight ID.
Yeah, you can see the flight ID on the very top. So that also facilitates when you're writing end-to-end tests and you already tested that transition of the page or that business workflows from somewhere, and now you want to test something else in there.
Yeah, and of course you can just start from different points and skip some parts. With end-to-end tests, it's always about if you want to optimize the speed, you can cut some corners and I don't know, skip some pages. And if you know this ID, you can go directly to this page and then test like this form or something like that. This can be useful in at some points because sometimes you just need to like test this functionality and you don't care about clicks to this part and you just want your end-to-end tests to run in some reasonable amount of time because they can run for hours or something like that, which is definitely not the good idea.
Exactly. So maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do that live. I don't know because we have a few minutes left anyway. So one of the things we could add in the additional test on the search flight spec is as we selected the flight, we want to make sure that we can see that text review your selection. If we can see that, that means it worked.
Sure. Let's just go back and do that first through UI. So how would we do that? We would search for London Gatwick and then
Madrid.
And then search for the flight.
And we select the flight. So if we select the flight and it's a successful transition, we should see the review your selection.
Yes. So how do we want to do that? Maybe we can create a new file. This is just searching for files for flights. So we can probably create another file called select flight or something like that.
Or what we could do, maybe we're not going to be able to finish today, is we could duplicate that file and we could test the business workflow of booking a flight.
Of course.
So let's try that. So duplicate that file, search flight spec. Let's try to do that live. Let's take that to the edge.
Okay. Yes. So we'll call this one, for example, select flight spec, whatever. Sorry for typos and things like that.
That's fine.
I guess we can do this. So do we want to do the same thing as here? Oh, actually, our test was search and select the flight.
Yeah. So what we could do is we could say, so if we could update the search flight spec, and we could rename the select flight to book a flight.
Okay, sure. Let's do book.
So let's do the easiest one for now, just so we don't make.
Okay, so let's not confuse people here. Do we want to do book a flight, or do we want to do search and select a flight?
So let's do the search and select. The only thing that's missing on the select, you see that the last line is we're selecting the flight card, and we're just going to the mouse over and then we click. The only thing that's missing now is we need to make sure we we can see the review your selection text. So if you open up Cypress, we need to use that selection playground in order to find that text we want.
Yes. So first, we're mouse over, we clicked, and yeah, nothing happened after that, right?
So no. So if yeah, here we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, it's just because there's an after. There's a delay on.
Let me just check. Or maybe I should unselect everything. Yeah, I need to unselect everything. So basically, we want to check if this text exists, right?
Yes, exactly.
What we can do is we can just click on, we can copy, and we can go back to Cypress and check if title is changed. For example, I can just put this. It's basically CY get heading headline, and I can say, for example, contains, which exists here, and then I can type some text here. Because this is like a static text, I can simply just copy or type it, review your selection. I can type it and see if I have any typos. It should be like this, right? So let's test if I broke something.
Yeah, we can even actually. So if you run all tests, I think the booking doesn't make sense. But let's just run it and see how it goes.
It doesn't make any sense because it's still named search for a flight. So we can disable different things. So here it is. I found this new title. We're not able to see it here because it's scrolled. But then if I check if that title exists, you'll see that it passed. Review your selection exists. And also, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but we should be able to do this thing and disable tests. I'll just check if this works.
Actually, I haven't tried this, so I don't know.
So yeah, it's just skipped. As you can see, there's one skipped test, which is book a flight. And basically the syntax is really simple. It's just adding X before it.
Huh. Okay. Is that a Mocha thing or something? I didn't know that.
You can do that in Jest and in Jasmine too.
Okay.
I'm not sure for Mocha. I think it works that way.
Okay.
And you
cool.
can also skip other things. For example, in Jest you can skip describe block and things like that. Maybe it works here. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess let's try one more thing. So just to make sure we can show that it is actually indeed that easy. It's not that complicated. It just takes a while for you to set up everything. So on the book a flight test, one thing that we could do is we already know the flight ID, right? So we know we could take that URL and we could go straight to that part and see if we can fill in some of the form details.
Of course, we just need to be careful here because I can just, as you can see, this is Chrome, so I can click on things and copy things, which is cool. But we just need to be careful with these hard-coded IDs because, for example, this test will be able to pass to the. Oh, actually, you can book flights in the past in the application. I'm not sure.
Actually, from the front end, no, but from the back end, yes, you could.
Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll just basically, we don't need this thing anymore. I'll just remove this thing because we don't need it anymore. We'll just log in first because we need to do that. But then we'll visit flight page, which is basically this thing that I copied, right?
Yep.
And then what do we want to do after that?
So the first thing I want to do is this. I want to type in the form. You see the name, country. I just want to get the name and just type something just to make sure it works. The country, I don't know how to select a drop down yet. It should be fairly straightforward. I just want to make sure we get that.
So for typing, we basically can do just type something, and here we can type Do we want to fill the full form or should I just check this?
Let's try this and then we try the others.
Sure.
I'm just conscious
Well,
about time as well.
yes.
In the meantime, it runs Lobodan. There's a few people here on the chat who I don't know if they feel offended or if they just feel you're not part of the cool kids club, but they are complaining that your ID looks too bright.
Oh, so my yes, that's true. I'm using a white background for some reason. I don't know why. I'm switching that from time to time. Now everyone is using yeah, everyone is using dark mode, and I guess I should switch to dark mode.
Yeah, so
I'm just used to this.
yeah, so Simon is trying to defend you there. He uses white background, but yeah, here you go. I can see it there. So I can see he's actually typing in there. Let's let's I don't know how to fill up a drop down menu, but can you try to do the postcode? It can be any number in the postcode, and in the card number it has to be 4242 until the end. So let me see how many 42 you need.
Yeah, I know. So this thing, we should be able to type any number here. I'm not sure. Do I need to? Actually, let's try. Let's try to put integer here instead of text. And for twos, well,
Yeah, I'm trying to get how many 42s you need, but it's gonna be until you cannot have anymore. So the browser,
yeah,
you can
it's
just add probably I
like
think it's like
for two,
15,
for two,
14.
then for two. I don't need spaces. It was just easier for me to type with spaces because I know the format of the credit card. And also I need expiry date. Expiry date will be anything in future, but in which format do I need to type expiry date?
I can't remember actually. That's gonna be month and year. Sorry, that's gonna be like 08, and any year that's gonna be not not
Zero
in the
eight.
past. Slash.
Do I need to type slash
Yes,
or
yes, you need. Otherwise the front end will say it is not. It's not. It just two numbers. Just say 22.
okay? So August 22, and then the last piece that we want to fill here is uh, the security code, which can be basically anything as far as I remember, but we can type,
It could
for
be any
example,
any
one, two,
three
three.
digits. Yeah, that should work. So let's see if let's see if that fills in. It should. The nice piece about Cypress, I don't know if you notice, is you don't have to keep stopping and starting all the tasks. As soon as you change your spec, it will automatically try to find out, reload that one.
So this one fails because what? Okay, it requires a valid typable element. This is interesting. So if I fire up my console, and I don't know how can I do this, but the thing is that this thing here for Cypress is not valid typable element for some reason. Maybe I selected the wrong thing, so let's try again.
No, you actually haven't selected. I wanted to see if that would fail or not. That's just something I have no idea how to test it yet. So if anyone on the stream knows it, so the reason that happens is because one thing, and I think we will have to do it differently. One
Yeah, because of iframe, right?
exactly. So one of the reasons when Simon and I were building that part of the booking is we want to make sure that we could show to customers that we don't need the credit card details, but we want to make sure that we can still securely capture that information, and but still not having any data whatsoever. So that card number, expiry date, and especially the card number, it's actually Stripe elements. So it's actually sending through an iframe, going every keystroke. It's being validated by Stripe on the backend side of things.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't think there's a way to test this unless anyone knows it. So I think we.
Or we can just Google that, but I don't think live Swim is the best way to Google that.
No, no, not at all. So I think let's just talk about other
Well,
other things as well, because before we close is all of these tests are actually running one by one. So we only have like what, three tests? Like that's fine. Three tests is okay. But as soon as you start getting more and more tests, think about a large application. A customer that I was working on last week, they had about a hundred and something tests on acceptance tests. You're not gonna run this in zero. You're not gonna run this one after the other. Otherwise, your CI/CD pipeline is gonna take you a half an hour.
exactly. I don't think half an hour is that bad because I'm pretty sure if you just do everything in serial, it can take hours for some large application because if you have some team that is doing manual session-based testing, it can take like hours or even days to test everything. This is a bit faster, but not that faster. I'm pretty sure that half an hour will be still acceptable for many applications. But just imagine that that you want to test something like AWS console or something like that with end-to-end tests. It would take a long time to test everything.
Yeah, exactly. So the solution for this, you have a few. If you're using AWS, you can use AWS Code Build, and you could simply run a for loop into your build. So I'm gonna point the link so people have an idea. In the source code on the PR itself, if you actually open up the PR and you open up the source code on the repo itself, if you scroll up, there's gonna be you just
Oh,
open
source code.
yeah, just open up the source code. We haven't implemented that, but we could. There's gonna be a file there called amplify.yaml.
Yep.
It's just a file, it's not a folder. So you see that there's
There's no
amplify.yaml
here.
there?
Oh, should I open? Just a second. I need to open the. How do I open the code for this pull request?
Oh no, so you don't need that one. So if you
Oh,
scroll up
and
and go back to the develop branch, there's gonna be a file called amplify.yaml.
oh, yes, here it is.
So that file is responsible for our custom CI. So if we wanted to run an end-to-end test in parallel, there are two things we will need to do with code build as it is today. We would have to, on the line 28, we're not going to change it, but just to show you how it is possible, we would have to add a new target in the make file that would run a for loop and would run code build, multiple code build builds. I know it sounds weird, but that's what it is. And you would wait for those code builds IDs to resolve and say project succeeded or not. And then you could fail the pipeline or not. If you are using something like Circle CI or Travis CI, or I think Jenkins also maybe that works too, there's a page on Cypress that talks about parallel integrations. So I'm gonna post that onto the chat. But essentially, some CIs work natively from a paralleling perspective. And code build, you can do that with for loops, or if you are using code pipeline, which we will in the next episode, you can use code pipeline to manage those builds to run concurrently. And you can have a gate in your pipeline to say if those 100 builds fail because some page fails or visual regression fails, you can fail the entire pipeline. And it's not that you're going to roll back the CloudFormation stacks and everything. It's more that you don't promote to the next stage. So think about dev or pre-prod, QA, and things like this. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm just thinking if we missed anything, or is there anything that we can. Oh yeah, we forgot the most important one at the end. One of the things I would love to do, we especially both of us actually, we've been discussing how to do it, but I I don't know how much of that is actually stable or not. Is one of the pieces that will be super cool with Cypress until they support headless Chrome, so you don't have to keep hacking around with display drivers and multiple dependencies, is to use a Lambda function. You could use a Lambda function as your unit of test, and you could basically, so this person, Stuart, did a massive research and trials. He was able to get Cypress to work in a Lambda by patching dependencies, installing display driver and things like this. So after all of that work, which could be a Lambda layer, by the way, the awesome piece about all of this is that unlocks by default any end-to-end task to run at least 1,000 tasks concurrently.
Yeah, which is awesome because if you have like 1,000 tests, you can basically run them in parallel. And instead of waiting 2 hours, you can wait for like 30 seconds or whatever. Oh, so here's the nice quote. 1 year ago, one of our UI test suites took hours to run. Last month, it took 16 minutes. Today, it takes 39 seconds. I think this explains everything the best.
Exactly. I think end-to-end test when maybe a few years ago, everyone knows that it provides the best value, but at the same time, it's one of those things that it takes a while until you run everything else. It's a very expensive thing to run. But if you manage to use Lambda functions to this, you're essentially bringing that value of end-to-end tasks to pretty much everyone. You no longer have to run multiple other small tasks just so you can speed things up. You could have a Lambda function that have all your tasks for end-to-end, and then you can simply use another Lambda function that would just you can enumerate everything you have in a folder, and you can invoke the Lambda function with exactly where the test path is, and you can definitely do all of this.
Exactly, and this should definitely be converted to Lambda layer because that will allow people to easily run and test these things.
Exactly.
Because right now you can just follow all the things that he did and try to redo the same thing, and it's not always easy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the last few things is if you want to get some experience with Cypress, and I think the best example to start is if you just go to their documentation, there's going to be something called kitchen sink. I will add the link into resources because I forgot. So so basically the kitchen sink is a GitHub project that they created to test all of their functionalities of Cypress, from using selecting elements to use drop-down menus, or even something that's even more complicated, which what if you have to log in and using social providers like Facebook or Twitter or Amazon or whatever. So most of these things are covered there. And if it's not covered there, they also have a link to more complete tutorials and things like this. So I'm pretty sure there are other solutions like Puppeteer and things like this. But as soon as Cypress makes headless Chrome to work, especially in Lambda, I think it's an amazing one to use pretty much everything.
Exactly, yeah, because you can easily add headless Chrome to Lambda with Lambda layer, at least to some versions of, actually some runtimes of Lambda. It can be a bit harder with Node.js version 10 because a lot of things are removed from Lambda to make it like slimmer and faster. But you can use like Node.js version 8 or Python or something like that and easily have Chrome inside, and then you can easily run your tests or render your UI or things like that.
Exactly. So to wrap up, you can use Cypress. If you go to this PR that he's showing up right now, you can follow and see how we are going to implementing the rest, especially for the Stripe, see if we can solve that problem. If you know the solution, please make a comment. We would definitely appreciate that. Otherwise, we would do some Google and see if we can find an answer. But Cypress is definitely the easiest to start. I can't imagine other ones. But at the same time, it's a space that it's been evolving, and there's a lot of solutions out there. I think that as soon as Puppeteer adds a few other bits and bobs like Cypress have, especially in the documentation, which is a killer feature that they have, it's definitely a space to keep and try and iterate and trying to improve as much as you can in there.
Yeah.
I also added a link to the chat that you can follow. You can watch some previous episodes, but more importantly, the next week I just posted in that as well for the whole schedule. For next week, we're gonna be taking a more advanced approach into the infrastructure, and we're gonna be using CDK, and we're gonna be moving away some of the stuff that we have in SAM, and start seeing how start testing the waters and see if we were to do all of this that we've done already in SAM, how would that look like if we do in CDK, and more importantly, how would that look like in a CI system like Amplify console? Or better yet, what if we take everything we've done so far, which is super fast for prototyping, and start creating something more complex, like a CI/CD that deploys to multiple different accounts or different environments, or a limited amount of security privilege in that CD, for instance.
Yeah, and there's another awesome thing with CDK. And for example, if you do TypeScript or Python, you can basically test your infrastructure too. Right now, it was really hard for us to test YAML files. We can, of course, do some things and do like linking and things like that. But with TypeScript, you can basically write your tests for everything now.
Yeah, exactly. So Juice Weasel, this is for next week. I'm gonna post a link again. So the link in here that I just posted on the chat has the full schedule on what we're actually doing next. The next 4 episodes, which are gonna be the last ones, we're gonna be touching CDK and start migrating some of that from SAM to CDK. Even if it's not GA, it's the preview. We don't recommend that you run in production, but it's mostly for us to learn how we could iterate when the time comes. And also we're going to be covering observability. We're going to start using tracing. We're going to be using some logging structures for the way we're doing things, and also custom metrics. We should be able to get a lot of metrics from all of this. For instance, how many customers are booking a flight for a given destination, how many people are searching for flights. All of this we could do in there. Awesome. Slobodan, any final words before we wrap up?
No, I think that this was really awesome, at least for me, and I think people learned at least a few things. And feel free to and let us know if we missed anything, or if you have any better practices and things like that. And yeah, the only thing I want to mention, you mentioned like monitoring and things like that, that you'll do that in the future. So tests can help you with many things, but not everything. There will be a lot of things that can go wrong with your integrations and things like that. So you definitely need to, that step too. And you need to be able to watch for your errors and monitor them in production and react on that. So thank you very much for having me at this awesome stream, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like I said, apologies for not having actually in the video. It's just a little thing we had. But we appreciate the chats, we appreciate the comments, and we see you next Wednesday at the same time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. London time, or 8 a.m. at Seattle time or PDT time. Next week, it's about CDK. Thanks for watching, and we appreciate all your time. See you later.